We have a very unusual guest today for episode 108 of My First Job, the podcast. Mr. Ganesh Iyer is India's first and only certified water sommelier. Who is a sommelier? He's an expert on water. So you'll probably be asking, why is it that water needs to have an expert? And I had precisely the same question when I first heard of this profession. I've heard of wine sommeliers, and Ganesh told me that there are cheese sommeliers as well, as there are experts in various parts of the food industry. This is obviously aimed at the very high end of the luxury and food consumption industry. And let's figure out today how Mr. Iyer got to where he is and how he is trained for something that all of us just look at and then say that's water. What is so different about water? So, this is, like I told you, uh, episode number 108 of My First Job, the podcast. And every week, we talk to people about their interesting career journeys, and each one is full of twists, turns, and insights, which I'm sure today's episode is going to be as well. So let me bring Ganesh on and begin to ask him the questions as to how he got into this very interesting and unusual profession. He is literally one in a billion because if he's India's first and only sommelier in a nation of 1.4 billion people, he is 1 billion, one person in a billion. So, Ganesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me over. I'm truly excited to share something which is as imaginary for most of the people in today's age of Instagram and social media, where people create very fancy titles, chief happy officer, and so on and so forth. People wonder ये भी ऐसा ही कुछ होगा.
Okay. So, obviously, you belong to the hospitality industry, which is where I presume you began. But what was
That's
your
right.
early education like? What did you first think of?
So, in a very honest admission, I didn't plan out things the way they look today. It would seem that things have been perfectly chiseled out for me, but it is sheer providence. I don't even know whether it's design or default. I did my graduation from Ahmedabad. That's where I grew up, the city of Ahmedabad. And
Okay.
one thing I was very sure that I didn't have I didn't have a very focused approach to going in for higher studies or going in for a MBA, probably because of the ecosystem that was around me in Ahmedabad, where it was
Okay.
all about doing things on your own. There was
Right.
entrepreneurship zeal, and the idea was to start working and get the learnings on the ground. You know, so most of the people say that I've been taught by XYZ teachers, I've been taught by XYZ professors. In my career, I would say I've been taught by circumstances. you know
Okay.
so that's something which is quite different. And after doing my graduation, I came to Bombay, and my first job was with a media firm that lasted for a year and a half. And somebody who was known to me in the hotel industry, he said, there's a opening with a French mineral brand called Evian. Would you be interested? And somebody coming in from Ahmedabad, which had at that point, talking about the late 90s, which had no serious concept about hotels and restaurants. I had never been to a five-star hotel in all my life till the time I got into my first serious job. So it was like I didn't even know how to enter the hotel. Like, there are multiple. You have a back door area, your friend. I didn't know that. How do you even enter the hotel? So that's how that's how that's how thoroughly experienced I was to get into hotel industry. And being handed out a job offer when I had to promote a French mineral water, which is globally Evian, the French mineral water. the world over, it's very well known. People call it by Evian, people call it Evian, people call it Evian. The French mineral water that's owned by Danone. They said, Ganesh, you have to sell this. Then I thought this would be as sacrosanct or as unique as Ganga Jal. I said, इतना महंगा तो Ganga Jal नहीं बिकता है,
Right.
because back in the days, the India was flush with plastic water bottles. The nearest plastic bottle that I would remember was Distillery, which was sold to hotels at 6 rupees 50 paise or 6 rupees 20 paise for a 1 liter bottle. And here walks in Mr. Evian from Danone, the French mineral water at 72 rupees a bottle. You know, so forget about Comset. I was it's like Pluto competing with Jupiter or Pluto competing with Earth. Like there's a lot of gap in between. And
Okay.
yeah,
We'll
please.
get to that. I just want to understand. So you, in a sense, this is almost providential. With your first job, somebody called you in and then said, okay, sell Avion and, market this to a potential audience. So you saw something as being priced at 12x of what the regular market was.
That's right.
So tell me what your first thought when you were asked to sell it. What were the kind of things that were going through your mind when you said, here's a market that doesn't know why they have to pay more? Because if you put two glasses of water, you pour it into a glass and then ask people to drink, it's unlikely that they'll make out the difference. With your refined palate, hopefully there is a real difference. But I'd like to
Now,
understand what is it? Yes. I'd
not
like to
then.
understand where it started. So, when you first were asked to sell it, what were the things that you thought of doing in order to make it attractive to people?
Yeah. So I think, in a very honest admission, I would say for the initial first 2 months, I thought, let's see how far this goes. Yeah? You are
It's
in
a very practical
2021.
approach.
You're 2020, and you can't have prophecies, or you can't have epiphany that I'm going to do something really marvelous, which I've not done even till now. And I'm like,
Yeah,
चलो 2 महीने का पगार आएगा, करते हैं, आगे देखते
yeah,
हैं क्या करना है. But in all this, what I realized, and I thank this to my upbringing in a city like Ahmedabad, where uh, beyond management jargons, people had the entrepreneurial zeal or zest uh, had an approach which is to simplify things or look at things at a fundamental level. You know,
okay,
most of the entrepreneurs that you say, they have very clear cut communication in terms of talking very basics, and they don't have very lofty conversation. You know, they as they say in Hindi, they speak mudde ki baat kya hai. You know, they
yeah,
don't get entrapped into all of this thinkers, speakers. The the Gujarati audience or the Gujarati entrepreneur is very clear that they speak what could be told by a management consultant in 15 words or 15 sentences. They'll probably say it in one sentence.
okay,
Simplicity of thinking or clarity of vision. So that is
right.
something which I learned. I wouldn't say I wasn't. I would learn, because at 18, 19 years, you have bigger priorities. You know. I hope you understand what I'm saying. At the age of you're just out of
Right.
teenage. The priorities are not that, I want to settle down in life. Like I would
So,
enjoy
what
life.
was the mudde ki baat as far as you were concerned?
For me, I would say, if this is the world's number one water brand and the whole world swears by it, India didn't even know the concept of mineral water. I said, कुछ तो होगा उसमें. There must be something very fundamental to it. Otherwise, the world of people will not pay such a premium. And what I realized was that, to learn whatever little I've learned at that young age, I said, let me go into the fundamentals of why is somebody buying this. So there must be a problem, and these guys are solving that problem. So the problem was that there wasn't quality of water available. At least in the Indian context, let's put it that way. It wasn't available then. It's not available now. We all drink RO water. That's just hollow water. I'll come to that later as we progress. So the problem was that a discerning audience who comes to a five-star hotel, somebody who's going to spend 2,000 rupees, 1,000 rupees for a meal. I'm talking about the late 90s, early 2000. If somebody is going to spend 1,500 rupees for a meal, he ought to have something premium in water as well. You know, because uh, at that time also, water was part of the fine dine or fine dine experience globally. India wasn't part of that stage as yet. India isn't there even today. So I said कुछ तो बात होगा कि लोग 75 rupees या 80 rupees 100 rupees में पानी खरीद रहे हैं. So it technically means that if the hotel bought it at 72 rupees, the hotel will be selling it around 150 or 200 rupees a bottle. A 200 rupees a water bottle I'm talking about in the late 90s, right?
Okay.
And where the nearest competition was selling water in hotels at 20 rupees. So as you rightly said, 20 into almost 10x or 2x the even the selling price at the hotel. So then I realized that it was all about where the water source came from, and it was a natural water. So what they are offering is they're offering a spring water, which is not treated, not filtered, not processed. It is given on the fine dining table as Mother Nature has given us, and that's what Evian les Bains, the village where the water source is, it's famous for. It's on the Mount on Mount Alps on the Swiss side, and you have to French side as well. So that's where Evian les Bains, the village was, and from that water is being sourced. And then I went on to study as to what made Evian is today. So they started campaigns that for expectant babies, it's good. For expectant mothers, the water is very good. For newborn
Right.
babies, in fact, Evian took off in the late 60s, early 70s with the campaign that it is an excellent recommended product for expectant mothers and newborn babies, and they ran a whole campaign around it, and that's how Evian became what Evian was. And if one were to go much before, I would say much before, I'm talking about 1827. We are in 2025 today. I'm talking about you figure out how probably what, 200 years back, I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
almost 200 years back. And how did spring waters came into being? Spring waters came into being because back in the days, the royalty and the blue blood, when they used to go to the retreats, they used to go for the retreats, and all the spring waters back in the days are retreats for health and wellness. They realized that
Right.
after staying there for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, by drinking that water from that retreat, from that spring, the skin started glowing. A lot of people got cured of kidney stones, and that's how spring water started getting commercialized. Till that time, people did not know. I'm talking about no. If I have to ask somebody when did water started getting commercialized, people say probably 50 saal pehle, 100 saal pehle. Water got commercialized in 1827 when Evian was sold in ceramic jars. The packaging
Okay.
was not plastic. Plastic did not. Plastic is an 80
It
or
didn't
90-year-old
exist.
invention. Yeah,
Yeah.
glass preceded it probably by 150 years. But back then in 1827, 1830, King Sardine used ceramic jars to commercially sell water because they figured out that after going to this retreat, the health started improving. So
Yeah.
something very interesting I would like to bring on the show. We all, I mean, not we all, some of us do go to spa, right? Once in a year or once in 6 months, depending upon the propensity to spend on a spa. Do we know what the spa stands for?
No.
Spa is abbreviated. Spa is abbreviated, right? The word spa is abbreviated. So spa stands for
Okay.
sanus per aquam
Okay.
in Latin. Yeah. Now, which technically means sanus per aquam is wellness through water or good health through water.
Okay.
And and this has become quite tragic comic today because today when I go to a spa, I'm given a plastic bottle, RO water in a plastic bottle. So I said, you made you turned the whole the tables upside down. The whole purpose is lost of the whole spa. Like you need to have natural water that's given in a glass container preferably, but you're giving me a RO water in a
Okay.
plastic bottle, which serves no purpose. But still, people do not know this because
Yeah.
for a lot of Indians, a well-heeled Indians, Mr. Nair, uh, a plastic water bottle that is sealed that has far more respect than a water that is served in a jug in a hotel,
Yeah.
in a glass decanter.
Yeah. Yeah.
For somebody like me, I would prefer that glass decanter because I know that the water was processed today morning at their chilling plant today, and I
Right.
would not touch the plastic bottle with a barge pole.
Okay. But tell me this. Um, what are the rituals around presenting a more expensive bottle of water? So let's say you had Evian, which is priced at 72, and then you had to sort of suggest that to people. One of the things I've noticed now is that the expensive bottle is kept on the table when you sit there. And you have to tell people that I don't want this, I want the regular one. But that's a
Correct.
fairly recent practice. So, what
Right.
was the kind of, how would you suggest that people invest in this water, and what was the kind of resistance that was there early on?
So this practice was started by me, trained by my seniors way back in 97, putting water bottle on the table. Now it's become more
Right.
prominent because today there are n number of restaurants.
Yeah.
Back in the days, Bombay had 20 restaurants. Today, you probably have 400 restaurants worth going to at that price point. So the resistance primarily was in a country like India, where you give water for when people come home as a part of our cultural ethos. You serve
Yes.
water, and that got extended. That when you go to office, somebody come and give you water. You go to restaurant, and it got extended. Internationally, this wasn't the case for a longer period of time. Eventually, they realized that there is money to be made out of water in the food and beverage establishments. So they started promoting water, which I told you in the late
Yeah.
1800s onwards or early 1800s onwards. So the resistance in the Indian context was that they couldn't make a head or tail. I said, why? First of all, people would have that bottle, they will drink it. They say we thought it's free water
Yeah.
in a hotel
Exactly.
because it was new to them. They say हमको नहीं पता ये इसको पैसे हमको लगा हमने टेबल पे रखा है तो फ्री ही होगा. You need to look at their mindset in late 90s, early 2000. Expats who came to India by at that point of time, even today, the 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 tragic comic Delhi Valley still continues. People are still susceptible to water, especially elsewhere. So they were very careful that they wouldn't touch any other water other than if it is not sealed or if it's a known brand. So even if in India had some packaged drinking brands, if it's Evian was a sense of purity and trust for the expats coming into India or the foreign count or the foreign guests who are staying in hotels. So primarily to a very large extent, 98% of the consumers were international tourists who were coming to India. Yeah,
Okay.
and they knew Avion. They did not were to be sold Avion. They knew the idea. And what happened was, if there are six tables on which are being occupied by a European or international traveler, there are one or two wealthy Indians who are also sitting next to them. They may not have the exact finesse. They'll say, "हमको भी वही पानी चाहिए." Not knowing what benefit it is. It's just that
Yeah.
I am no less than the the foreigner or that expat sitting a couple of tables away from me. So I can also pay that, or I can also indulge just to show to the rest of the people that even we have evolved.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it started as a in a very
Almost like
in
an
a very
auto suggestion that you'll come to the
yes
same level if you have the same water and you serve it, and it becomes a kind of upgrade.
upgrade and even then India had wealthy people enough and more in number. It's just that they didn't, for the ones who haven't had traveled abroad that frequently. Let's say the wealthy entrepreneurs, yeah,
Hmm.
the new age entrepreneurs of the late 90s, not the old school aristocratic Indians, but other than the aristocratic Indians, they felt that
Right.
even I can pay 200 rupees for a bottle of water without knowing why they are drinking. They couldn't make out a difference between a distillery and a Evian. Back then, even today, to a very large extent, they couldn't make a difference. So
Yes.
people still do not know the difference between a packaged drinking water and a natural mineral water. So
See,
that
I
was a
like
challenge.
the fact, yeah, I like the fact that you're being brutally frank in saying that perceptually people will not make out the difference.
Correct.
So, in your mind, when did you think it was important to get the certification for being a sommelier? Because you already had the entry into the market, you already had spent a fair amount of time. Why is it that you felt that you needed to get certified?
So one of the things that we did even back in the days when we were promoting Avion, and then I went on to be a part of other brands like Himalayan, because Himalayan was at that time owned by Dadi
Right.
Balsara. Tata's took over only in 2007 2008, but then it was owned by Dadi Balsara. So after Avion, and even during Avion time, the core point was that you need to invest in a lot of education and training programs. You know, uh, most of the hotels and restaurants, they suffer from not being able to optimize their revenue, is because most of their education and training program, especially in the beverage, is more of a lip service. They don't go deep and train them because everybody wants to do a quick deal, and that continues unfortunately even today. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at the wine industry today, it's not growing at the rate what it should have grown in India, especially in the hotels and restaurants, because nobody wants to take the long route of creating awareness, training. Even if the training is done, the training is done purely from a transactional basis. So even during Evian time, our effort was to train the hotel staff as to how do you serve a bottle of water, how do you hold the water bottle. If somebody were to ask about Evian, please explain what is the background of Evian, and so on. And even when I was part of the team that launched Himalayan and multiple other water brands. So by the time I thought of doing the water sommelier course, I think it was early. It was in early 2010, 12. That's when I came to know. And by that time, I had almost spent 12 to 15 years with water brands. And
Okay.
I came to know about a water sommelier as a course exists in 2011 or 12. I'm not sure exactly when. I realized that all this 10, 12 years of experience of sales or marketing water brands, this does not give me a deeper understanding from a technical point of view. You know,
Okay.
we trained hotel staff, we trained restaurant staff, but we're talking about what the brand lineage is, why this water is great, blah blah blah. But and because there was less or there was not less, I would say because there was zero awareness, they all believed that whatever this gentleman is saying is true, and there is nothing more to know about water. वो कहते हैं ना अंधों में काना राजा. So
Yeah.
even when I trained people in 2001, 2002, 2005, 6, 7, they thought that he is the expert. He knows everything about water. This retrospectively, I thought when I did the water sommelier course, I said, dude, I didn't know jack. I was just talking about the brand. In early in 2011, 12, when I realized that there is a course that exists, that's a residential course that exists, wherein you need to be if you need to progress in your planned career or default career of promoting water, you need to have some kind of technical qualification so that the message goes at the fundamental level.
Okay,
And
we'll
going back
get
to my
into that, Ganesh. Just give me a minute. I'll just make the standard announcements and then come back to you. Okay. You're listening to My First Job, the podcast. I'm speaking to Ganesh Iyer, who is in a very unique profession, which is that of a water sommelier. He tells me that this differentiation of water, which came from natural springs, started as far back as 200 years ago. It's only that modern day branding and the understanding of the need for pure or natural water has grown, and so has the kind of imagery around water. So now, in the next phase, in the next segment, I'll be talking to him about how the course qualifies you and how do you learn to differentiate one brand of water from another. So, Ganesh, what was tell me about some incidents of what happened during the course while you were learning. Where did you do this?
so there is this academy called Domens Academy in Grafling, Munich, Germany. They are one of the oldest schools in the world that would teach you on the basics of water. And to the best of my knowledge, I think that's the only college in the world which has a residential program that teaches you how to identify water, what are the various unique aspects of water. It's a 12 to 14-day residential program in Munich. The investment would be close to 3 to 4 lakh rupees on the course. And what you study in that course is there are various attributes of a spring water or a natural mineral water as to what is the criticality of why is that source very important as to where is that water coming from. What is TDS? TDS essentially stands for totally dissolved solids. What is vintage? How is vintage relevant to a natural mineral water? What is the importance of hardness to a water? So there are 5 to 6 attributes of spring water and natural mineral water. During the course, so the course was designed in such a way that you had a written examination and you had a practical market visit. So in terms of written examination, you need to be writing down points about, you need to do various water tasting. So during that 12-day course, I would have tasted close to 110 plus water brands. And as a part of the sensory training, it's about sight, smell, mouth feel, and post going through the sensory training, you got to be able to describe when you do a blind tasting of different waters from across the world, across the continents. You need to be able to describe how does this water taste, how does this water smell like, and how does this water look like, and what are the various mineral compositions you think this water has. So if I'm drinking X brand of water, and if this is a TDS of X brand of water, as a part of my examination, I need to be able to fairly give a range as to this water will have so many milligrams of calcium or so many milligrams of potassium. That's for the written examination, and that written examination is by sight. You look at the water, smell the water, and then eventually you make these notes. One would wonder how would you smell and figure out what is calcium or what is potassium? Of course, if it's a sodium-rich water, then of course you can drink the water and you can make out, okay, the water is higher on the salt side, or the water is quite salty. Then you might give an attribution that for so and so reason, this water has got high amount of salt, so it's a sodium-rich water. But other than that, it's very. If I were to ask Mr. Nair that if you smell the water and how would you make out that this smell is attributed to this mineral present in that particular brand of water? To give you a reference point, in the late 60s, there was a German, there were two German scientists. They figured out that there are almost 30 to 40 off flavors of a given set of minerals. Now, what do I mean by this? This is a bit technical, and you please bear with me when I'm trying to explain this. Um, when I so what are these off flavors? Yeah, these off flavors essentially are flavors which would indicate if there is a particular off flavor, and if I get that off flavor in that bottle of water, I could attribute that this water is probably rich in magnesium. To give you an example, we all know there are four taste buds, right? There is salt, sweet, bitter. What else here? Salt,
Sir,
salt, sweet, bitter, sour. You have two more taste buds people do not know. One is umami,
yeah.
and six is fat. Yeah, fat is still not be able to be described, but umami is again a taste bud. So, for example, if I were to drink a magnesium-rich water, imagine you biting into a metal.
Okay.
What kind of feel you get. So that's the taste profile. How to get a smell? So technically, a magnesium-rich water will have a almost similar uh, smell when you open a drain.
Yeah.
Imagine you open a running drain. It is yuck. That's how magnesium would smell. Or similarly, you have, yep.
No, I just like to, two not exactly similar, but sort of adjacent professions are one is tea tasting, and the other
Hmm.
is there of the flavorist, the person
Right,
who adds flavors. So let's say flavors, and so they're looking at one particular flavor, and then they say, okay, is this the right one? Is it lime? How artificial is it? There, you're measuring against something that is actually there, in the sense
right,
that lime is differentiating itself from the rest of the profile of water. And if I
right,
was to look at tea, there are profiles of strength, what do you
right,
say, color, and these things which make a difference. Whereas when you're
right,
tasting water,
right.
visually there is no difference. And
Visually,
there
that,
is only
yeah.
a perception. So, how is it that do you have to prepare in some way before you start the tasting? Or is there a way that now there is this thing which you say cleanse the palate before you take on something which is there? So, how would you cleanse the palate? And does it require, qualities of a different sort in order to be able to evaluate water?
So first comes interest. Yeah, how interested you are in understanding. So that's you need to have curiosity, right?
Right,
As when somebody is studying as a profession. So as a part of the examination, one does not need a special palate as such. It's just that every palate is different. You have different palate. I have different palate. You may be sensitive to spice. I may be sensitive to bitterness, but that's unique. So the preparation is that as a part of the study course for 12 for 11 to 12 days, we were exposed, as I mentioned earlier, we were exposed to almost close to 100 plus water brands. And
Okay.
these 100 plus water brands gave us a sense of different taste profiles. And and then as a part of the study course material, you were told that okay, if the water from a smell point of view has got off flavors of open drain or a rotten egg or a freshly cut onions or how do I say it, or a freshly squeezed lemon. So these all are off flavor attributes to each of the mineral. You don't need a even for something like. And the interesting part is when you drink let's say the reason I keep coming to magnesium because it's more profound and easier to detect because it's not pleasurable drinking. When you drink, you say, yeah,
Right.
what does it taste like? And the beauty is after that, your aftertaste is that you got a very sweet taste, mouth feel to it. When
Right.
you drink it, when you smell it, it is yuck, right? When you drink it, so that's the smell and taste to it. In terms of sight, what you mentioned, some not every waters are very clear. Some waters are very hazy. There is
Okay.
this brand that there is this water from Denmark called Iskilled. Now, Iskilled, you spell it as Iskild, Iskilled from Denmark. Now that water has the highest amount of oxygen present ever found in any water brand. Now
Wow.
when you vigorously shake that water bottle, it resembles a buttermilk.
Okay.
So likewise, there are very lot of unique attributes. So as a part of your study, you go through, you study all this, and then when you write for your examination, you drink that water, and then you have to make a judgment. Okay, this has off flavors is rotten egg, or this off flavor has is like freshly cut onions. So then you take a guess that and every water will have multiple mineral composition, right? It will have 20 milligram of calcium, 35 milligram of magnesium, it might have 70 milligram of silica. So when I told you about site, I told you as an example this brand from Denmark, you can make it from site. So in terms of aftertaste, I told you about the magnesium rich water, right? Where you have an aftertaste. Now, from a mouthfeel point of view, if you drink waters which are high on silica, let's say the brand called Mount Fiji, yeah, again international very well known brand. If you drink Mount Fiji, you've got high amount of silica. Now, what does silica do? Silica gives a very velvety mouthfeel to it. So these are the attributes we keep in mind in a memory, and then we jot down that this is this water. We will not be able to name. We will not be able to name the brand that. And you do a blind tasting. Okay, this is the brand. We will say this water is
Yeah.
rich in silica. This water is rich in sodium, potassium. Sodium is still okay because when you drink sodium, you can make out it's very salty. So you'll say, okay, this is high on salt. But
Right.
beyond the sodium, because we are not chemists, right? We don't sniff potassium, magnesium day in, day out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and therefore, you need this off flavors to come to a reasonable understanding that these are the minerals present in this brand of water, and this is how the brand will taste, and this is how the mouthfeel is going to be. So you can't be spot on 100%,
Okay.
but
I get that.
it's
I
not.
get that. How do you differentiate between, let's say, a Perrier and an Evian? Both are spring. So, what are the things that come into play when you have multiple brands which are all, the purity of springs and they all come from extremely, clear. So, how do you then how do you create a differentiation in perception?
So, firstly, Evian is a spring water. Perrier is also a spring, but it is carbonated, or it's a sparkling water. Yeah. So on the one hand, you have a Evian that's a natural mineral water. You have Perrier that's a sparkling water. Uh, that's so the differentiation here in this case is that one is carbonated, one is not. But
Okay.
when you take two brands of spring water, let's say you take Evian and you take a brand like Veen that I represent, yeah, the Veen that is bottled in Bhutan. Now both waters are high on TDS or high on mineral composition, and the only thing is your source is very important. Your source from where you're getting that water from, and also as there is a as they call it in wines, terroir. Terroir essentially is the region from where the water is sourced. So, for example, if you take a water from, let's say, from Greenland, let's say a brand called Icelandic, it comes from somewhere near Greenland. Now that water will be very, very low on TDS, or it's a very light water. So when you talk about TDS also, there is low TDS. When I say talk about low TDS, so notice before I say that, what is TDS? TDS is the
Total
totally dissolved
dissolved
solid,
fluid. Yeah.
totally dissolved solid or solvent, and that is present in that particular brand of mineral water. Let's say if you buy a bottle, and this TDS is only relevant and applicable if it's a natural mineral water or sparkling water. If it's a packaged drinking water, the TDS is irrelevant. So the moment it is a packaged drinking water, it's hollow water, it's a dead water, there's nothing in the water.
Yeah.
You need to drink a safe water, you're getting a safe water. Don't have any more expectations from that packaged drinking water. So
That's
for
true.
we water sommeliers call packaged drinking water as hollow water. There's nothing in the water. You want a safe water, this is a safe water. It's done its duty. So
Okay.
the difference between a Evian and a Veen or a Vittel or a Volvic is that where is the source, and that source will also tell you as to what is the region. Why I'm saying this is because in the case of bean, for example, in Bhutan, the place where we source is in a place called Samchi, and Samchi is known for its Dolomite mountains, or the mountains as Dolomite. Now, what does Dolomite do? Dolomite essentially gives you calcium, and that goes into making talcum powder. So when you have talcum powder, calcium is present. So Dolomite is a very critical component. So it technically means that if you are having a water source in and around mountains which has high amount of dolomite, in the case of bean, you are going to have high amount of calcium in that water.
Okay.
And how do you make out calcium? Because we have a very chalky mouth feel to it. You know.
Okay.
Now that may not be the case for a water from Greenland, Icelandic, because it's a water that's taken from the glaciers. So water which are either in generally speaking, if you have water in the glacier, the mineral composition is likely to be much lesser because the water has still not come to the ground. And
Okay.
essentially all minerals are found in the ground. It's not up in the air. Why I'm saying
Right.
this, why I'm bringing this reference, because there are a few companies in Australia, they harvest rainwater.
Hmm.
Even before the water, rainwater in India is a disaster because our air quality index is beyond imaginable limits. But you talk about
Yeah.
place like Tasmania in Australia, it's the environment is so clean that they harvest the rainwater the moment it's about to fall to the ground. Now those waters will have
There
TDS
is
of
a
only
brand
5.
which represents that water. I mean,
Yeah,
the ring.
yeah,
Okay.
there are
Okay.
there are 4 or 5 brands in Australia wherein they harvest rice water. Sorry, they
Okay.
harvest rainwater. And likewise, there are multiple brands. There used to be a water there used to be a water from Svalbard region towards the North Pole. It was called Svalbardi. So there they used to go on a 15-day expedition to find an iceberg that is appropriate to be harvested. If you don't get appropriate iceberg, you come back empty-handed. You bring back that iceberg and you go on a 15-day expedition into North Pole. You're not going to Gurgaon, or you're not going to Kafar area. You're going to North Pole. It's not inhabited. You go and bring the iceberg, harvest it here, and sell them. Of course, the company is no longer in business for whatever reasons. But that is the most expensive process to get a water bottle, and that bottle in Indian rupee back then was retailed at 10,000 rupees a bottle.
My God.
So likewise, there are
I
almost
guess that's the. But again, see the thing here, from whatever you've told me so far, is that the difference is essentially in perception. Because to for somebody who's been in the business for a long time, you're able to make out waters far better than somebody who's sort of buying that once in a way, or not. That is not their regular drinking water.
right.
Now, I have seen that when you go into a new place and then you drink water from a natural source for the first time. For example, in Kerala, you go into the wells and immediately after water, there's a definite sweetish kind of tinge, because when you come back into the urban water supply, you instantly make out that this water doesn't seem anywhere as close to sweet as this is. The saltiness dominates, or it has a very flat kind of taste which comes in. Now, what is the thing about sweet water? Why is it that well water, which is not flowing, or is it that it tends to, is it again a composition of the chemicals which are there in the ground at that point, which is giving it that feel?
Uh, you mean composition of minerals?
Minerals, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, uh, from a to give you a artesian well or a well, let's say I wouldn't want to put any jargon, so I'll try to keep it simple and try to make it simple. Yeah, that's a challenge with sommeliers. I keep telling that water sommelier's task is more complicated, unlike a wine sommelier, because 50% of wine sommelier task is taken because there's already intoxication taking place after 3 glasses. People forget about all the basics. They're like, मजा आ रहा है. So that's the challenge with water. मैं मजा नहीं दे सकता हूँ. So so when people say, oh, should I do a water sommelier? How is a water sommelier? I say it's a very painful process because you're put in a room, in an ambient room, devoid of any body odors or devoid of any body perfumes and heavy aerosols. You're in a very sterile environment, and the water tasting experience, water experience is not rewarding at that point of time because it's irritating for you. That why the hell I'm not able to get it. So coming back to this point of water you take from the well. So the mineral composition of water found in a well or a water found. So there are multiple sources of water, right? You have a spring, that water that's a flowing water. You go to Uttarakhand or you go to Kashmir, there's a free flowing water. Then you have artesian wells. Yeah, like how you mentioned, there is well water, and this is available across the country. You'll have wells in Uttarakhand, you'll have wells in Kerala, you'll have wells in Karnataka. It's very important that what is the surrounding. The
Okay.
surrounding will contribute to the quality of the water and how old that source is, because
Right.
there are some water sources which are almost 1,000 years old, 5,000 years old, 15,000 years old. The water source, not the company, the water source and where the water is flowing through. Uh, similarly, similarly, when you look at so yeah, a spring water would have a different TDS and a taste profile. A well water will have a different TDS and a taste profile. Uh, 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 an aquifer is essentially water deposits trapped below the earth. So in the case of spring water, it's a flowing water. You don't have to do anything. In the case of a well, you just have to put your rope and get that water out. In the case of an aquifer, you can't see the water. The water is trapped below the terra firma, and then you have to extract that water. You put some mechanical and get that water. In all the
Okay.
three places, the TDS would differ for obvious reason that in the case of well, the water is I don't say stagnant. The water remains still for a very long time. So most likely the TDS of a well water is going to be easily between 300 to 350, 400. There is a likelihood. Why does it taste sweet? Because of the combined mineral composition of that water. Does that mean all well water will be sweet? No.
No.
Like how
Yeah.
people say that if you go to Coimbatore, people say Tamrabarani water, Siruvani water is the sweetest and therefore is
Yeah.
the best water or therefore is the purest water. So best, purest,
It's all
cleanest.
perception. Yeah.
This is all attributes because water itself cannot be pure because water has got totally dissolved solids. So
Yes.
if it's got solid, how can water be pure? So it's a one thing to market it. It's one thing to do a
Yeah.
marketing jargon. Everybody
Yeah.
says my water is purest. Somebody
Yeah.
says my water comes from for 500 years. 600, all that is great, but eventually, what is the mineral composition in that water, and eventually, how does that make you feel? In the
That is
modern
important.
in the modern urban milieu, what happens is we are so used to drinking RO water by and large that anytime you go to your hometown in Uttarakhand or Kerala, wherever, for the initial few days, the water doesn't suit you. If you're going
Yeah.
frequently every month, then it's a different story. But if you're going once in 3 years, 4 years, and especially for people who are not aware of it, they will say, "Arey, ye pani ekdam khara pani hai," or the water is very heavy.
Yeah.
And the water I'm drinking at home, which the Bombay Municipal Corporation gives me or any municipal, I think the water I like it. You like it because it is made to taste better. Or there's a
Okay.
sweetness element. Like when you drink a bottle of Aquafina, you like it. The water is बहुत strongly pani meetha hai. I said pani meetha hai because they have made it meetha.
Okay.
This reminds me of this very humorous incident that happened to me when I used to work for Johnny Walker. That somebody who's been so used to ordering Johnny Walker from their bootlegger from the gray market, not knowing that it is a bit adulterated. One fine day when he goes to the hotel and he's given an original Johnny Walker, he says ये Johnny Walker बराबर नहीं है. So the hotel
Okay.
the hotel guy is at pains to explain, sir आप अभी तक जो पी रहे थे वो नल्ला था, ये ओरिजिनल है.
Okay. Great. So I just you're listening to My First Job, the podcast. I'm talking to Ganesh Iyer, and he's told me about how uh, a hard, difficult job it is to actually differentiate all the water, and the amount of experience he brings about water from various water sources, from aquifers, from wells, and from free flowing water. It's it's wonderful that this is a whole world which most of us are not even aware of, because the moment we are presented with water that's very expensive, most of us have this thing that you shouldn't be, like he also says, from cultural context we just hand out water to people as part of hospitality. But this has again become another commercial aspect which has come into water, because it is a source which can be monetized. In the final segment, I'll be speaking to Ganesh about career prospects and how does one go about getting into this as a career. So, who would you suggest gets
See,
into?
from a career point of view, I mean, one should, as I mentioned earlier, it's as to how curious you are about knowing water. That's one. Before that, I'd just like to interject and go back, if you don't mind, to the whole concept of people not wanting to pay for water. And my humble submission is that when somebody is going to spend 1,500 rupees today, you go to a decent hotel or restaurant for two people, you'll end up spending 2,000 rupees on a meal. And my
Yeah,
submission is, if you can pay 2,000 rupees on a meal, why can't you pay 200 rupees for a bottle of water? Not because I am saying so. I'm saying so because so why does water come in as a dining experience? Because when you have your food with, if you look at the Ayurvedic school of thought, they'll say you should never have water before meals, right? That's one
right.
thought, which is quite valid. Also, but when you're sitting in a fine dining and when you're entertaining guests, you would want to show that you are evolved completely. You know that when you're doing a fine dine meal, the fine dine meal needs to be accompanied by natural mineral water, because what happens is when you have a fine dine meal, the natural mineral present in that water bottle enhances the food flavors. That
Okay,
does not happen when you drink from a RO bottle water.
okay,
That does not happen, and that is the whole reason. Apart from the fact that the hotel will make revenue, no doubt about it, but somebody who is discerning and who has the wherewithal to pay that money. I've seen a lot of people that they'll say, no, no, I will not pay for water. I said, you drink RO water, that's perfectly fine. Firstly, it doesn't make help you any good. And secondly, today you have water pad menus around the world. Not today. It's been a decade and a half. Now it's almost 15, 16 years. You have different types of waters pad, different types of food internationally. That is the frontier where the culinary world is already there 15 years ago. Yeah. So
okay,
you have water pad menus, water pad with beer, water pad with whiskey, what kind of water you should have, what kind of natural mineral water you should have with whiskey, so on and so forth. So it's all about, when you want to have a complete experience and you want to have drink water, might as well drink a natural mineral water, and most importantly in a glass bottle. Uh,
okay.
co- and coming back to the whole concept of as a career prospect for water sommeliers, I would say uh, when I did it purely out of curiosity. I was curious to know that if I'm promoting a water, I need to know the fundamentals of it. And this goes back to my this goes is this concept of curiosity led learning that will give you a very strong foundation. And that's what I had when I was 19 or 20 years old. I was very curious to know something which is not complicated, which is not quantitative technique, which is not some B school exam, but in a very simple way. I just had curiosity that what is it so unique about it, which then I start when I went deeper into curiosity, I realized that any beverage, Mr. Nair, you or me drink, 90% of that beverage is water.
Yeah,
You might enjoy a glass of single malt, you might enjoy a glass of whiskey or wine. If you don't know what that water is, how will you understand the water? So that is the reason when people say that the best beers come from Germany and Belgium. The belief that the best beers come from Germany and Belgium, because the best water sources are in Germany and Belgium. So the water is good, the beer is good. The water is good, the wine is good. So my curiosity was that I want to know about water, and I want to know water from a very fundamental point of view. So from a career prospect, at this point of time, the water sommelier as a category is still very nascent. I would say there are almost 5 or 7 water sommeliers in India after I did mine. So in the last, let's say 7 or 8 years, we have 6 or 7 water sommeliers. I, for one, I'm a part of an organization that's Wien. We were the first ones. Wien was the first one to do glass bottles in India way back in 2012. So we have a sustainability story, and then promoting goodness of water. The other career, the other aspect of career prospect is that being in India, it's a nascent stage, but eventually, just like any other food and beverage or dining trends would come to India with lot of force and gusto. Eventually, it's a matter of time that what every hotel, just like they have wine sommeliers, they'll also have water sommeliers in place. And then the whole concept of taking water seriously would begin. Currently, we still don't take water seriously. Like most of the like you go we go for dining. A lot of people just they don't even take back that half consumed water bottle. They leave it on the table. Now that's such a criminal waste of water. So as a water sommelier, am I solving the water problem? Am I solving access clean drinking? Am I able to solve problems of access to clean drinking water? No. But the fact that I'm bringing that conversation into mainstream will hopefully sensitize people that when I'm going to pay money for water, why I'm wasting that water on the table. I paid
Right.
for it. It's my money. I take it. And then there's a global debate that whether should be water be free or water should be commercialized. I'm of the view that in the Indian context, if you don't commercialize it, there is abundant wastage. In the Indian context, people below the poverty line should be given access to free water, but anybody above the poverty line should be paying for water. Otherwise, we will end up using 150 liters, 200 liters to clean our car every day in the morning.
Hmm. That's true. That's true. So, how does this, as a profession, I assume that it pays pretty well because it's one of those rarefied kind of jobs which there aren't too many people. So, breaking into it will be fairly difficult. But you kind of got into it right in the beginning, and then you worked your way through the entire process. So, if there is somebody who's into hospitality and then wants to make a switch into being a water sommelier or a wine sommelier or a cheese sommelier, which are the various options available, what is your advice to them?
So this can run parallel to what they are doing. So if it's a restaurant manager or a food and beverage manager or general manager, this can run parallel as one more added expertise. Because as of today, it's a nascent stage. To plan your career or livelihood only on water would be a bit difficult because
Yeah,
I was probably ahead of time then. I'm ahead of time even now. It's
right.
almost like I was in Treta Yuga and we are in Dwapar Yuga when I did the course. Almost on that kind of situation. And even today people are surprised. So as a career option or a learning option, one should have if and as I said, this purely comes out of the fact not because what will this job pay me? It should pay you. It will pay if you're a full-time water sommelier. It should give you at least 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh rupees a month, depending upon if how serious the hotel or restaurant in the future will want to take you on board. Uh, but I did not do it from the point of view that what will this job pay me. I was driven by the concept of curiosity that I wanted to know. I wanted to. My curve was more about the learning curve and not so much about the financial curve.
Right.
Eventually, when you do workshops and you train people and then you build credibility, you build a brand for yourself. Then people like we do a lot of HNI events. I do a lot of HNI sessions when I the quite a few top-notch business families in India. We do water tastings for them. This water and they can afford. They can afford. They can buy out those international water brands. Uh, so they won't know. Okay, with I'm having a
So
dal
at these
khichdi.
events, what do you pair with water? It obviously can't you can't just come in and drink water alone. So how do you plan a water tasting event?
So a water tasting event firstly begins with the fact that what are they getting into? Why do they want to do it? They want to
Okay.
do it because somebody told them to do it, or then genuinely they also because a lot of people have a lot of sensitive taste buds, right? Some people are I know that for a fact that they can drink the water and they say I can't drink this water. So there are some people who do that. So for a water tasting program, first is again it begins with the curiosity that I want to know more about water and how do you pair water with different kinds of food. That again goes back to our conversation that what is the dominant mineral present in that brand of water and what is that dominant mineral going to do the food. Without delving into technicalities, I'll try to put it as a base level template that let's say uh, Ganesh and Mr. Nair would like to go in for a Japanese meal and we are enjoying a seafood salad, right? So you're having a seafood salad. It is semi raw, and that seafood salad would best be accompanied. by water which has got good amount of sodium, because the water has got good amount of sodium, that creates a very interesting mouth feel when you're having a seafood salad with a water that is rich in sodium. A brand that comes to my mind is a brand called Vichy Catalan, that's from Spain. That's known to have the highest amount of sodium ever found in a spring water. Or
Naturally
if you're having a
present.
barbecue, you're naturally present. Yeah, more, that's more important. So if you're having a barbecue, barbecue is quite heavy to eat, right? It's a heavy meat. Let's put it that way. So you need to have a natural mineral water that has got high TDS. It helps you to digest the barbecue very efficiently, or you could have something like a San Pellegrino which has got big amount of bubbles. So that carbonation helps you to process the food much quickly. So if you're having a chocolate mousse, for example, again, a chocolate mousse and a high sodium water will taste make the chocolate will make you
Feel
to go
even
for a
sweeter.
second round of will make you to go for a second round of chocolate mousse if you have it with a good amount of sodium water. So there are so different amount of the level of the dominant mineral will determine what kind of food I would like to eat. Same goes
Mm.
for whiskey. Same goes for the beer. If you're having a single malt, let's say, I see a lot of people having single malt and having apple juice into it. People with blue label drinking with apple juice. Their money they can drink with rasna also. They can drink with real juice also. I don't have a problem to it. I'm not an expert. To each one his own. The purest way is drink a single malt with 2-3 drops of natural mineral water, not your package water or your filter water. When you drink filter water, your whiskey is murdered. When you drink with filter water, your vodka is murdered. You murder the water when you use RO water. The
Yeah.
natural bouquet of the wine thing has to come out. Even when you do wine tasting, when you cleanse your palate, you need to have a natural mineral water. You can't do RO water, and you can use RO water, but some of the best wine sessions that I've attended, they haven't got into their gray skull that you are murdering the second wine that you're going to taste, because you are having your mouthfeel is going to have a lot of chlorinated feel to it before you that's the reason I said we are still a very nascent stage that people don't understand it. But yes, there are multiple foods can be paired with, including a biryani. So if you want to have a biryani, because we'll say, Ganesh, don't give me international food cuisine, don't give me pasta, don't give me gnocchi. दाल खिचड़ी के साथ
Give
मैं
me
क्या
a
खाता हूँ
biryani and
बिरयानी के
what?
uh, yeah, have a biryani with a nice uh, medium level natural mineral water, something like what we have Wien, which is a medium TDS level water. It's got a TDS of around 250 milligrams per liter, and that would go very well because that will balance the minerals of the water as well as balance the high flavor present in a biryani. And
Mm.
likewise, you can even do it with curd rice. You can do it even with dal chawal. So it all depends upon, and it's a matter of that you
Yeah.
get fine tuning.
This is fascinating, Ganesh, and I wish that we could go on with this because when we started out this conversation, I thought it would be just along the lines of differentiating water. But you brought in all these elements of the origin and the flavor profiles and the combinations that can result. And obviously, that's a very fertile way of progressing into the future.
True.
So, thank you very much for being on the show. And it's been a pleasure talking to you and uncovering so many of the things that you normally wouldn't associate with a glass of water that you think is just to quench thirst. Thank you for being on the show, and it's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me over. Uh, one of the presentation lines of my all my training programs have always been that water is not just water. There is more to it.
On that
Thank you.
note,
Thank
I
you.
think we leave it there for now. Thank you very much for coming on the
Thank you for
show. That was Ganesh Iyer, and he spoke to us about the marvelous opportunities that being a water sommelier presents. Next week, another guest, another career. Thank you very much for joining us today.